Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel for another Street Fighter Duel video. So we're going to be going over a wee bit of a discussion around Elena. If you remember back, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you'll know that I mentioned, I think, 4 or 5 videos ago, that the likelihood was Elena was a little bit of an experiment, okay? She is an experiment, right? We actually do know this, right? I wasn't outright going to say it, but Payne already outright said it, right? I don't know if we were really supposed to say it was an experiment, you know, but hey, the cat's out the bag now, so may as well discuss it in a little bit more detail. I kind of tried to more hint towards it rather than directly saying it, but again, no need to do that now. So yes, the whole thing that they've done with Elena is they have brought her out as a special summon who is a factional unit, and the reason they were talking about doing that was in the future it would mean that if players bought into this, if players were interested in this, then future units like maybe Oni and potentially other units who would possibly have been put into Master or Inferno could instead be given a factional rank. They would still be special summons, however they would be a factional rank, okay? Now I also said that Ken may well be an experiment as well. That I can't concrete say is an experiment, right? It might be, but we'll talk about him as well, right? So where does the issue arise here? Now, when I was first told about this special factional summon thing, I'll be honest, I said, what's the point in that? Like, I don't really think people will necessarily like the fact that factional units are going to be put into this special summoning banner, because the whole reason people want factional units is because they have the likes of arcade coins and stuff like that that they would like to be able to summon these units using. And you've also got things like the other summoning banners, which if we check them out here, you've obviously got factional recruit. That's one place where people like to get them, and if it comes to it, you've also got choice recruit. That is pretty much why people like factional units, like, let's be honest, that is the reason people like them. Whereas if they're on this banner, you can only use these red tickets, which are difficult to come by, they're expensive, and not a lot of people like summoning on these banners, because it tends to be a case of, if you're smart, who you started to summon on this banner, you keep going until they're done before you move on to anyone else. So the fact that they've put Elena on here as an experiment means that they've kind of stacked the deck a little bit towards it being a successful experiment. Now, unlike what Payne said, where he said if they had maybe done it with someone like Oni, for example, it would have gave the unit a little bit more of a fair shake at the stick. I don't necessarily agree with that, and the reason I don't agree with that is because of what I just said. People now know that if you've started going for Ryu, you keep going for Ryu. If you've started going for Akuma, you keep going for Akuma. Same goes for Gouken and stuff like that. So even if they had brought out someone like Oni into this banner and it was an experiment, chances are, while the unit may have got slightly more summons than Elena, the people who would summon for that unit day one would probably be the same people who would summon for that unit if that unit was a Master or an Inferno character, because the more general players, when they're already invested into one unit, they keep going on that unit. So bringing a unit like this out in a small window as a sample to see, do people like this? Do we keep doing this or do we not keep doing this? I don't think would yield the right results anyway, regardless of how they did it, because people are running on the system of go until you're done, when you're done, move on to the next unit that is going to help you out most. Now, the only way I could see people breaking that trend would be if the unit would have the dupe system. The dupe system that people were hoping for, that I was expecting, that would have made a big difference. If going on this banner to get factional units, you didn't have to have as many copies because you could use dupes. To be honest, we wouldn't need to get 3 copies from the event, right? So while it is very, very cool that doing this, we do get 2 copies of Elena, right? if we got no copies of Elena, none, not one, but you were allowed to use your fodder, that would be vastly better than us just given a copy or two. I, in a heartbeat, would trade that, okay? Because you would need half the amount of dupes, okay? 2 copies here means you need 2 dupes less than a standard Inferno or Master unit. Having the standard factional dupe system built into these factional special summons would mean you would require half the amount of units, which is vastly better than being given a token 1 or 2 copies, okay? So for that reason, I feel like this is a bit of a flawed experiment. Apart from the fact that they used a support unit, right? Historically speaking, support units do not generate as much hype. And I'll tell you right now, I made content for 2 years straight for a game called The Sky RPG, and I had to really fight to convince people how important support units were. Support units were the things that would literally catapult you to top scores, and people didn't care. People did not care. All they cared about was going for the DPS characters, without understanding that, especially in that game, the support units were the things that allowed those DPS characters to put out massive numbers. It's not quite the same in Street Fighter Duel. Yes, Elena does buff attack, and you will do more with her as attack, but at the same time, because she is just simply a fancy healer, let's just say, yeah, sure, she's got a few more strings in her bow, but at the end of the day, she's still a fancy healer. People look at her and they say, but I've got standard Elena. I've got Summer Yang. I mean, I don't really need another healer. Even if she has got these other things, they don't get excited by that, right? So if the developers use this one sample, which would be a mistake in my opinion, to dictate what they're going to do going forward, then without saying much more, it's going to be a failed experiment, because Elena is either going to generate the same amount of numbers summon-wise that every other unit has, because Wales will have summoned her, because that's what happens. But I don't think as many kind of regular players will have jumped in on her. So I'm hoping that they don't do a single snapshot to dictate what they're going to do going forward, right? Not only that, I mean, if they do this one experiment and then decide, nah, we're not going to do any more factional units in the special banner, it's going to look extremely weird having one wind unit and then just a whole bunch of Master and Inferno, right? That's just going to look super weird, right? So I think they probably need to at least do one Thunder and one Flame. The thing is as well, Wind is the one like faction that needed things the least. If they had put in a factional unit that was a DPS unit and it was Thunder, you might have actually seen people jumping off from doing what they would normally do, which is stick to the one unit, because Thunder desperately needs it. So you could actually see people breaking the trend and going, you know what, okay, I've went quite far on Akuma, but I really need a Thunder DPS. I'm going to switch over, we'll try and get this unit. So a fair experiment would have been, even if you're not going to use the most hype character in the world, right, you could have used someone like, I don't know, Guy, right? There is a Guy, Yakuza Guy, he's a Thunder unit, right? Hopefully they don't make him a special summon, but they could have, right? They could have used him as the experiment. He's a DPS character, he's for a faction that desperately needs it. It would have maybe possibly yielded a bit more useful information as to whether or not people would change their habits to summon for that type of unit. Ultimately, I feel going in and changing the dupe system would be the best way to encourage people to summon. Also pity, but that's for another day. That's every day. But Elena, as good as she is, she probably isn't going to generate the numbers that you would want them to generate. And it's almost like they must know that. Like, they must know that. And I don't really see any reason why they would want an experiment to fail, because if they just go back to doing Master and Inferno in this banner, it's not really going to achieve anything, you know? It's not going to make them any more money. It's not going to make people summon anymore. So it doesn't make any sense for them to kind of purposely build an experiment that's going to fail. So I don't really understand the logic here. I just feel like maybe they overestimate the power of female characters. They just think that, oh, she's a female character, people will summon for her. That's it. So as players, I don't really think it's wise for me to say to you guys, look, if you want to get a more wide range of units that aren't just Master and Inferno on this banner, go out and summon for Elena, because if you don't need her, you don't need her, right? Simple as that. So hopefully they don't just do this one time, because if they do this one time, I feel like it's not really a good sample set for like how the player base has responded to it. I do hope they keep some of the things that they've done. However, I would give up those free copies of units in exchange for a better dupe system, right? Hands down. If they went in and they reworked this to give us the dupe system for standard factional units but on these special characters, that 100% would make this worthwhile, and I think a lot of people would buy into it. Now, very quickly, the other experiment that I believe that they're going to run, right now, I don't know for a fact if they are going to use the data from this as a kind of gauge of what they're going to do going forward, although I believe they might be, is going to be this guy here, Fashion Ken. Now, the things that we don't know, first of all, we don't know how they're going to discount him, right? I really don't think he's going to be free, guys, right? We don't know how they're going to discount him. They're either going to use the Chun-Li system, where it'll get discounted all the way down to like 70% off or something like that, or they're going to use the Nero method, which will go down to like 50%, right? Now, how this unit performs will likely dictate how often we are going to get legendary units, right? Basically, in the past, a lot of units we should have got as legendary were changed to Master and Inferno. You had to summon to get them. Lots of people don't have them, right? If this unit does relatively well, then we will probably continue to get more legendary units. Depending on where you sit on the player scale, if you are a completely free to play, if you're a dolphin, a whale, whatever, obviously your opinion on what's best is going to greatly differ, but this is going to basically, I believe, dictate how often we get these guys, because up to now, they have not done that well, right? They have not done that well. I think there's a chance that they might rerun, especially during the anniversary, I think they might rerun Fashion Sakura and Flame Chun-Li. So it might be an indication of how well they do with how many people purchase them, okay, as well, because I don't think many people will purchase Sakura. I do think a lot of people who didn't purchase Flame Chun-Li may well now do that, but this guy himself, I think a lot of people will be interested in purchasing him if it's at the right price. What I would suggest to the developers, and this is just my opinion, if you are willing to do this unit at 70% off, instead of doing this invite friend to make a discount, just sell them at that price. Just when the unit launches, just put them on the store and sell them for the price that you're willing to sell them for when people have got the max discount. Because nobody's going to buy the unit at anything above max discount, so you're just basically making people jump through hoops for a discount you're going to give them anyway. So my suggestion would be, just launch the unit at that price. Like, just, if $29.99 is the price that you're going to do it for, then just do it. Just bring them out at that price. Don't bring them out at $100, making people invite 10 friends, and then once they've done that, you'll give them for $30. Just do it straight away for $30, and that will give you a good indication of how much or how interested people are in purchasing these units. We'll see how it goes. It would be a bit unfortunate if they just made every single legendary unit a summonable unit, because again, unless you have insane luck, which no one has, it's impossible for you to get all these units anyway. I've already said in my other video about how these units are very important to the kind of long-term health of the game, that I believe that they should add a system where people can get these units, even if it does take a couple of months. Add in a system, because I can tell you now, people who are willing to spend money in the game, they're not going to wait 3 months to get a unit. They will still buy the unit rather than waiting 3 months to get it from an exchange. Just look at the likes of AFK Arena. All of their legendary collab units do fantastically, but free-to-play players can still get them. Takes them about 3 months, but it doesn't stop the people who want them now from purchasing them. So I don't really think you would be cutting off your revenue stream by doing that. It would make the free-to-play players happy. It would make your pay-to-play players happy because you're not turning every unit into a summonable unit. It's a win-win situation for everyone. So if you're going to experiment with anything topjoy, that would be the experiment that I would suggest that you do. Implement a system where people can start getting these legendary units a couple of months after release, free-to-play. You'll only be able to get a couple of years because you're literally gated by the currency that you can earn. It's not going to kill your profitability. The only thing that would kill your profitability, honestly, is greed. So try cutting back on that. Make things a bit more rewarding. Stop doing these dumbass experiments. If you're going to do an experiment, use units that are likely to generate interest. Not necessarily the character, the function, right? The function. That is what's going to get people to summon more. And again, if you want to make one fundamental change to the game, apart from pity, if you're going to introduce factional units, make them use standard dupe system. Even if you have to go in and compensate people for Elena because they've already used dupes of Elena, just take the hit. Just change the system, make it so that she does use standard faction fodder, and I'm telling you, your uptick will go when it comes to summoning and people hitting those banners. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I've been Hayzink, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.